Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bahashem, Chakodash. The belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutation to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim, the Sadakim, that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. I'm the Priest Shaman. This week's topic, we're going to be talking about let the weak say I'm strong, all right? We're still staying on course with the situation over there in the Middle East. And before I go to the scriptures in Joel, where it says let the weak say I'm strong, just a little update of what's going on over there, man. I mean, look, the tankers that the United States has sent to the Strait of Hormuz to so-called put a double blockade, if you will, on the strait, it seems to be just posturing, right? It seems like more tacos, because, you know, they're keeping a good amount of distance. They're not really, you know, Trump is just right now issuing checks he can't cash. Iran is still putting up tolls on who they want. It's going to be very hard to control the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is winning also in the war of information and propaganda. All right, they dropped a new Lego video, catchy beat, getting at Trump for calling himself so-called Jesus. And it shows you how the tides have turned, because that image of Trump with the robe on and the red, whatever, it's not new, it's old. You know, when it was originally posted, there was no backlash about it. It was just called him being a healer or whatever. But now, with pretty much everybody turning their back on this guy, all right, people were quick to jump on and say, hey, this guy's called himself the Lord, and then Iran jumped on it. So the United States and Israel is just losing on all different fronts here. You know, the failed mission in Isfahan, okay? And when I say the failed mission, I'm not talking about the rescue mission, because most people are saying, just, you know, based on the information I was given, that rescue mission was a feint, right? It was more than likely, yes, an F-15 Eagle got shot down, but they were using that situation just from the amount of people that they brought in and these different carriers, all right, to obtain enriched uranium, right? And it failed. So that's where we're at with things. This is a book of Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter. I'm gonna start at 1. It says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, right? So everything has its purpose, right? Everything has its time. Jump down to verse 8. A time to love and a time to hate. Yeah, so these people out here saying, oh, God don't hate, that can't be God, it's hate. They know nothing about the scriptures. This is completely ignorant and naive. The Most High deals with both. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. It says a time of war and a time of peace. Yeah, I mean, so it's a time of war and a time of peace. So right now we're in war times, you know, and a lot of these Israelite groups, they're not really in that spirit to understand, like, yo, serious shit's about to kick. You know, let me jump up to verse 4. Ecclesiastes 3 and 4 says, a time to weep and a time to laugh. Again, this is all balance. A time to mourn and a time to dance. And we're not right now in a time to be dancing and shit and celebrating in a mirth type spirit. We're in a time to be on our P's and Q's and to be on our watch. Okay? Because this man is gonna move fast. You see? This thing is gonna happen quickly. This man destruction is gonna happen quick. He's gonna go down quick. Scripture says I saw Satan falling like lightning, man. Alright? So let's jump to Joel, the 3rd chapter, the 9th verse. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Come up to where? That Middle Eastern region right there, man. Alright? That's where everybody's being gathered. The thing with the East is, you know, it really affects most of the world's oil trade. You know, so that sort of that oil is acting as a glue to really bind all these nations together to one common interest in one region. That's the East, the Middle East. It says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Instruments of agriculture. So everything you're doing to invest in agriculture, switch that up. Let's invest now in war. And Iran has gotten a shit ton of drones, all right? And they're doing damage with those drones. Iran's strategy is simple. They don't gotta beat America like gun for gun, bullet for bullet, because they were losing that way. They are winning by just America. They are winning by America not winning. If America's not winning, they're losing. So they just really got to sustain, keep holding out, all right? You already see that they're freaking resilient. That there's a video, the news reporter interviewing somebody in Iran, and they bombed the building not too far from them, and they just kept going, saying that we're resilient, we don't give a fuck. Still chanting death to America and Israel, and still chanting God is the greatest, which is Allah Akbar. So, and yeah, you ain't gonna stop them Carminians, man. All right. It says, let the weak say I am strong, and that's the title of the show. These nations that one considers weak, and when we say weak, we're talking about in terms of nuclear capabilities, right? The moment that the United States dropped Fat Boy and Little Man or something like that, those two atomic bombs on Japan, that shook the entire nation. That shook the whole world of atomic capabilities. Now, knowledge shall increase, as the scripture says in the book of Daniel, the 12th chapter and the 4th verse. You got bombs now capable of doing crazy things, all right, attached to missiles that are traveling Mach 15, all right? Go from one part of the earth to the next in under 30 minutes, So you got about half an hour to get your house in order and prepare for death when this thing happens, man. All right? Unless you're part of the elect, So that's what's approaching. These nations have it. They're over there saying they're trying to stop Iran from building its nuclear arsenal up and enriching uranium. Of course, we know that Iran is not a threat to the United States in that way, all right? It's a threat to Israel, them small hats, so they're trying to control that entire region. You see, them small hats are surrounded by their enemies over there, okay? Them so-called Jews in that land that don't belong to them, they're surrounded. So they're trying to take everything over in that region, but Iran is going to be a strong place to try to take. All right, and they up on game. That's why I said they strong now, man. All right, because guess what? If they don't outright come out and say they have nuclear weapons, guess what? Their allies do. North Korea, China, and Russia. And even if you stop the train, even if you stop and you're trying to get even if you're trying to block up the strait and try to stop these nations from giving military weapons to Iran, guess what? You have the Belt and Road Initiative, all right, put together by Xi Jinping, which is land routes, all right, that connects Asia to those parts of the Middle East. Okay, so they'll find a way to get whatever they got to get munitions over there. It says 11, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about, thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. The angels, okay? And these nations are gathering themselves. How can they not? Like I talked about, that oil, okay, that's that binding glue that everybody latched over there. Asia needs it, okay? For the simple fact, due to their population, all right? Because yes, China does produce oil, but not enough to the point where they could export it. Because their population, man, billions of people, and they want to be a rising superpower. But as it looks right now, man, Iran holds the cards, man. Okay, they're gonna. The ceasefire was called by Israel and the United States. Trump is threatening puts out deadlines that you know that they can't do shit about, all right? And they willing to go all the way, okay? They have so many different threats. Not only do they have the Straits, but they could bomb U.S. bases throughout the Middle East. Okay, they're killing it with these drones, these suicide drones. Guess what they could also do? They could also attack these desalination plants, all right, in the UAE and Israel and these different places, because water is not easy. Fresh water is not easily attainable over there. You know, that's how you go in the scriptures. It always speaks about the former and latter rain, how important the rain seasons were, all right, and different bodies of water, okay, because it's not abundant like that. So these desalination plants where they take these salt waters and make it fresh water, yo, you bomb them shits, man, that could just completely destabilize a lot of things over there. And Iran is willing to do that. They're willing to go there, all right, namely the IRGC. So that's how come they have to have a ceasefire. Now they're putting out another thing for a peace talk. Okay? 12 says, let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yehoshaphat, which is the Most High's decision. The Most High's decision is judgment. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Right? So I don't know how people could deny this. I mean, all this stuff that has happened is not pure coincidence, okay? This is all the work of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahshua's prophecies. I mean, as it is written. Isaiah 55 and 11. Words of the Heavenly Father don't go out void. Okay? Surely as He's spoken, so shall it stand. So these things will come to pass. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 1, it says, the vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, concerning Edom, we have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye and let us up against her in battle. That was in 1952. That ambassador, Abdul Gamar Nasser, okay, president of Egypt, who famously said there would never be peace in the Middle East because the Jews left black, came back white, which is a very accurate statement, meaning the real Jews you read about in the Bible, Yahushua, the tribe of Judah, because that's what Jew is really a derogatory term put up by the Babylonians when Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were put into captivity. Okay? Instead of calling us by our respective tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, okay, because it's only the southern kingdom that went into captivity of the Babylonians. The northern kingdom already fled and were already put into captivity under the Assyrians. Okay? King Hosea, believed being the last king of Israel. So when we were under that captivity, instead of saying Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the Babylonians just said Jews. Just call them all Jews. And they're a bunch of old niggas. You know what I'm saying? You know? But the real Jews are black. So-called Negroes here in America. Alright? So the Lord, Yahushua, was a black man. You think if the whole world knew that Yahushua was a black man, you know how different things would be? How people will stop seeing themselves as inferior. Bleaching their skin, bleaching their hair, and getting blue contacts and shit. You know? They'll understand how great they are. I'm going to stop right here. Maybe I'll continue, Lord willing, tomorrow just with Obadiah. Because I've been meaning to go do it. I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Ruach Kodash. That belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutation to the hopeful elect that day. Yoakim to Zedakim that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom.